Welcome to True Echo, the channel where real stories echo louder than fiction. Today's powerful tale is one of pride, prejudice, and poetic justice. The morning sun lit up Scottsdale like a spotlight, glinting off the glass panels of Liberty Lux Motors, a dealership known for its exclusivity and unspoken elitism. The kind of place where champagne was cold, shoes were shined, and judgment came faster than customer service. Inside, polished marble floors stretched like a runway, and jazz hummed through the air like background applause for wealth. Elena Brooks, 44, stepped in wearing dark-washed jeans, clean sneakers, and a fitted blouse beneath a faded denim jacket. Her presence didn't scream money. It whispered intention. She didn't come with assistants, security, or even a flashy car. Just herself, and a mission. She was there for her son. Luca was graduating Stanford's MBA program next week, and she had promised him a dream car. Not because of the price tag, but because of what it represented. Achievement. Precision. Power. A Porsche Taycan Turbo S. But before she even made it past the first row of Bentleys, she felt it, the quiet tension. A receptionist gave a smile that looked like it hurt. A salesman leaned to another, both chuckling like she'd just wandered in from the wrong side of town. She wasn't new to this feeling, being evaluated, reduced, dismissed. But today it pressed deeper. Perhaps because she had purposely come alone. No title, no armor. Just a mother fulfilling a promise. She moved toward the Taycan, brushing the air above its sleek body. It shimmered under the lights like a sculpture. This was the one. She could already imagine Luca's face. But then came the voice. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the vehicle." It was curt, measured, and entirely unnecessary. She turned and saw him, Chad Whitman, floor manager, late 30s, manicured in arrogance. He wore a blazer like it was body armor and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Behind him, a taller man in a loosened tie observed with mild amusement. "I wasn't touching it," Elena said calmly. "I'd like to speak to someone about purchasing it." Chad blinked at her, then smirked. "That model starts at $185, ma'am. You may want to look at our used inventory, something more accessible." The implication was loud and clear. He saw the brown skin, the sneakers, the lack of diamonds. And just like that, her purpose was invisible. She tried once more. "It's a graduation gift. My son just completed his MBA at Stanford." Chad's laugh was short. "Stanford? That's cute. But this isn't the kind of place where you just walk in and kick the tires on a six-figure car." He gestured vaguely toward the back. "We've got a Corolla on our affiliate lot. Might be more your lane." Elena stared at him, not shocked, just sad. The saxophone in the background kept playing, as if it too wanted to drown out the humiliation. Other guests watched from the corners of their eyes, pretending not to enjoy the show. Elena exhaled slowly. "Is there someone else I can speak to?" Chad didn't flinch. "I'm the one you speak to. And trust me, I'm saving you from a disappointing experience." That was when Travis stepped in, champagne in hand, loafers without socks, the living embodiment of inherited arrogance. "She walked in like she owned the place," he chuckled. "Gotta admire the guts, huh?" The insult landed like a slap. Elena didn't rise to it. She simply reached into her purse and texted one line. "I'm ready. 3 minutes." And then she left. Without raising her voice. Without revealing a thing. But the fire had already been lit. 3 minutes passed. Then the sky outside Liberty Lux Motors seemed to darken, not from weather, but from presence. The first black SUV pulled up like thunder on silent wheels. Then another. And another. By the time the fourth vehicle settled into place in front of the dealership, the parking lot had quieted. Even the valets near the edge paused, uncertain whether to approach. Inside, Chad was still retelling his morning encounter to a man wearing golf gloves, his voice filled with smug authority. She said her son went to Stanford, he was saying, as if the idea itself were comical. I told her this wasn't a fantasy showroom. This is Liberty Lux. Laughter again from Travis, sipping his champagne like the day couldn't touch him. But then the doors opened. The air shifted immediately. Elena Brooks walked in. Gone was the denim jacket. In its place, a charcoal gray power suit tailored so sharply it could cut glass. A gold watch glittered under her sleeve. Behind her, 4 professionals flanked her like pillars: legal, compliance, operations, and board oversight. They didn't browse. They marched. The receptionist stood up so fast she knocked over her water. Chad turned just in time to see Elena step into the center of the showroom, standing once more beside the Porsche Taycan, but now, there was no warning to move. The car looked different now, as did everything else. Customers stopped mid-sentence. Phones were slowly lowered. The smooth jazz continued, unaware that the storm had arrived. "Ma'am," Chad began, trying to recover. "If there was a misunderstanding earlier, I'm happy to assist you now, personally." Elena turned to him. Her gaze didn't blink. "You told me this morning I didn't belong here," she said, not loud, but clear. "That I should look for a used Civic across town." Travis shifted uncomfortably behind a display car. "This is a mix-up," he offered, tone overly friendly. "Let's not blow this out of proportion." "No," Elena said sharply. "Let's call it what it is. Bias. Disrespect. And now, termination." A woman stepped forward, tablet in hand. "Margaret Lynn, Chief Legal Officer," she said crisply. "Effective immediately, Mr. Whitman and Mr. Doyle are dismissed from Liberty Lux Motors. You'll be escorted off the premises after retrieving your belongings." The gasp came in ripples. A nervous cough. A champagne glass nearly dropped. "You can't fire me for doing my job," Chad barked, stepping forward. "You weren't doing your job," Elena replied. "You were doing what you thought the job was: gatekeeping. Policing appearances. Defining who belongs and who doesn't." Another man, mid-50s, stepped up behind Elena and flashed an ID. "Robert Kendrick. Chairman of the board. All decisions have been reviewed and approved." Travis looked pale now, color drained beneath his tan. "Look, we were joking. Everyone jokes." "Not everyone laughs," Elena answered. Security stepped forward. Calm. Professional. They didn't drag anyone, but they didn't hesitate either. Chad's protests turned into pleading, then silence, as he was guided through the same doors where Elena had exited less than an hour before. This time, she didn't follow. She remained. Inside, the staff was frozen. Jordan Lee, the young associate who had watched it all unfold earlier, now stood near the desk, eyes wide, clipboard forgotten in his hand. Elena looked at him. And this time, he didn't look away. She addressed the room. "This isn't about a car," she said. "It's about a culture. One that tells people what they're worth before they ever speak. One that thinks wealth must look a certain way, sound a certain way, be born a certain color." The silence wasn't tense anymore, it was reverent. "You see, I own this dealership," she continued. "Brooks Tech Industries purchased Liberty Lux Motors last fiscal year. I'm not a customer today. I'm the CEO." A new silence descended, this time of realization. The woman who was refused service was not just someone. She was the someone. Behind her, Margaret continued tapping her tablet. "A full compliance audit begins this afternoon. Diversity and inclusion training will be mandatory, effective immediately. Review of all staff interactions over the past 18 months will be conducted." A man by the espresso bar nearly dropped his cup. A receptionist sat down too quickly. But Elena wasn't finished. She turned back to Jordan. "You saw what happened this morning," she said. "You didn't stop it." He stepped forward, heart pounding. "I'm sorry. I wanted to, but I was afraid." She nodded. "And now?" "I'm still afraid," he said honestly. "But I'm speaking anyway." Elena's eyes softened. "Then you're ready for more responsibility." She looked to Margaret again. "Put him on the leadership development track." Jordan blinked. "I've only been here 3 months. "Good," Elena said. "You haven't been trained to ignore people yet." Some staff laughed quietly, not mockery, but relief. The ice was melting. A weight was lifting. And Elena wasn't done. "This place didn't just need new inventory," she said, turning to the staff. "It needed a new value system. One that sees the person, not the profile. One that listens before it labels." She turned back to the Taikung. The same car. The same showroom. But a new message. "You all thought I didn't belong here," she said. "But the truth is, this place never really belonged to you. It belonged to the people who built it. The people it serves. And that includes people like me." The jazz picked up softly behind her, and the sunlight through the windows turned golden, like approval. Outside, more customers were arriving. And this time, someone was watching to see who would welcome them. The sun shifted in the sky above Scottsdale as if honoring a quiet reset taking place inside Liberty Lux Motors. The same polished showroom now stood in reflective stillness. It no longer gleamed with untouchable luxury, it vibrated with change. Elena Brooks remained centered, calm and composed, while the chaos of ego had been escorted out. The silence that followed Chad and Travis's removal was not hollow. It was heavy, with thought, with uncertainty, with possibility. Margaret Lynn, still poised with her tablet, moved through the floor in calm efficiency, connecting with department heads. She issued mandates without apology. Every employee would be required to undergo full-spectrum diversity, equity, and inclusion training. There would be no opt-outs, no exceptions. The audit of employee behavior, complaints, and hiring patterns would start immediately. Across the room, the employees shifted, some nervously, some gratefully. Their faces told stories, guilt, shock, defiance, even hope. The false security that came from routine discrimination had shattered. And in its place, raw humanity now sat uncomfortably upright. Jordan Lee stood just outside the eye of the storm, stunned but ignited. The moment Elena had pointed at him, when she said he hadn't yet been broken by the system, that moment rooted itself deep inside him. It wasn't just redemption. It was a second chance to become who he wanted to be, not who the culture had forced him to become. He watched Elena make her way across the room again, this time moving from associate to associate. She greeted them directly. Her questions weren't vague, they were pointed. "How long have you worked here? What kind of customers do you see being prioritized? What happens when someone walks in who doesn't look the part? And most of all, what did you feel when I was turned away this morning?" Some stuttered. Some gave guarded answers. But others opened up. An older woman named Patrice, who worked in service scheduling, admitted she often felt uneasy about how customers who spoke Spanish were treated. A younger man from inventory named Zeke admitted he once heard Chad call a Latina customer high maintenance simply because she asked questions. Elena listened. She didn't scold. She nodded, thanked them, and asked, "What would you change if it were up to you?" That question lingered in their minds. Meanwhile, Margaret reviewed employee files in real time. Patterns emerged, complaints that had been buried, interviews cancelled after reviewing names, resumes flagged because the photos didn't match the brand. It was more than bias, it was systemic. At 2:15 p.m., Elena called an impromptu team meeting. Not in the executive conference room, but right there in the heart of the showroom. Salespeople, assistants, and porters gathered in a loose half-circle. A few customers looked on from a respectful distance. Even they could sense something rare was happening. Elena began softly. What happened this morning wasn't a one-off. It was a mirror. She paused. A mirror showing how deeply our industry, and this dealership, has tolerated behavior that never should have been acceptable. And I'm not talking about isolated racism. I'm talking about the arrogance of gatekeeping, the poison of stereotyping, and the comfort of silence. No one looked away. Not anymore. We are not here to protect status. We are here to protect service. Real service. The kind that welcomes a nurse in scrubs the same way it welcomes a lawyer in Gucci. One of the newer hires, a black man named Tyson, raised his hand. What happens to people who can't adapt to that? He asked quietly. They won't be here long, Elena replied plainly. This isn't about scaring people. It's about standards. The kind that value character over couture. The room digested that. And slowly, something shifted. Not all at once, but organically. Patrice stepped forward, her eyes uncertain. Ms. Brooks, may I ask, why didn't you come in with your title first? Wouldn't all this have been avoided? Elena smiled faintly. Because the point wasn't to be recognized. It was to see what this place really was, without a nameplate to protect me. She stepped back toward the Taycan once more, that gleaming machine still gleaming, still perfect. But now it seemed like something more, a symbol of legacy, of turning humiliation into transformation. Jordan stepped forward again. I was scared this morning, he said aloud, eyes facing the team. I didn't stop what happened because I didn't think I had the right. I thought if I spoke up, I'd lose everything. A few heads nodded. They understood. But now I realize, he added, his voice steadier, if we all stay quiet, nothing changes. And we all lose something anyway. Elena looked at him again with respect. And in front of everyone, she said, effective next week, Jordan Lee will begin transition training to become showroom manager. Gasps. Applause. Some clapped out of surprise. Some out of support. One or two out of shame. Jordan didn't gloat. He simply bowed his head, humbled. Thank you. I won't waste it. And you're not alone, Elena said. I'm hiring a full-time director of culture and equity. Liberty Lux Motors will be the case study for what transformation really looks like, not performative, not PR, but personal. The words landed like seeds in fresh soil. And even those resistant to change knew, the ground beneath them had shifted. The following week brought more than just a change in job titles, it brought a change in tone. At Liberty Lux Motors, the mornings no longer began with smirks and secret glances. They began with check-ins. Small huddles where department heads opened with a simple but powerful question, what did we learn yesterday? The transformation wasn't easy. There were tense moments, awkward conversations, and some uncomfortable departures. 2 senior associates quit before the week was out, unable, or unwilling, to adjust to the new expectations. Others tried to coast silently under the radar, but Margaret's audit left no shadows untouched. But for those who stayed, something new took root. Elena had made it clear, loyalty wasn't about how long you'd been there. It was about how open you were to learning, and unlearning. And no one embodied that more than Jordan Lee. He took his new role seriously, not as a badge of pride, but as a responsibility. Gone was the clipboard, replaced by an iPad and quiet authority. He still dressed modestly, but now his posture had changed. He asked questions, offered support, and, most importantly, listened. On Tuesday morning, a single father came in wearing a faded t-shirt and boots still caked with dust. He wandered near the electric SUVs, uncertain if anyone would take him seriously. Jordan walked straight up, smiled, and said, "Take your time. I'm here if you have questions." The man blinked. "You sure?" I'm not really dressed for, he trailed off. Jordan didn't hesitate. You're here. That's all that matters. Across the floor, Elena watched it unfold from behind a tall glass partition. She wasn't micromanaging. She was observing. Studying how real change moved, not through policies on paper, but through people who decided to act differently when no one was pushing them. Later that day, she gathered the executive team. The DEI officer she'd hired, Dr. Mariah Steele, had prepared a full week of interactive training sessions. Not the boring kind. These sessions were immersive, emotionally confronting, and grounded in real-life dealership scenarios, most of which mirrored the exact treatment Elena had endured. This isn't just education, Mariah told the staff in their first all-hands session. This is renovation. And like any remodel, it'll get messy before it gets better. Elena stood beside her, silent but firm. Her presence alone spoke louder than any slide presentation. Throughout the week, employees learned about unconscious bias, racial microaggressions, and economic stereotyping. They were asked to reflect on their own upbringings, their assumptions, their fears. Some cried. Some resisted. One man walked out in the middle of a session, muttering that the place had gone woke. He didn't return. His badge didn't work the next day. But others, like Patrice, leaned in. I never knew how much I'd buried, she admitted during a debrief. I'd seen things over the years and just told myself it wasn't my place. Now, she wasn't afraid to speak. In a surprising move, Elena offered each department the option to propose one internal policy change. Within days, suggestions poured in. A blind resume review system for future hires. A language preference indicator at customer service desks. Monthly culture equity meetings with rotating staff facilitators. Bonus incentives for employees who scored high in customer empathy evaluations. Elena approved almost all of them. The vibe inside the dealership changed. The marble still shined, the jazz still played, but the feeling was different. Laughter didn't come at someone's expense. Eye contact was given freely, not just to those with Rolexes. Jordan instituted a new tradition. Every Friday afternoon, the team would close early for a reset hour, an informal gathering to decompress, share wins, and recognize quiet acts of integrity. The first week, Jordan stood and acknowledged Zeke for stepping in when he overheard another associate mocking a Spanish-speaking customer. He didn't record it. He didn't tweet it. He just stopped it, Jordan said. Zeke was stunned. That's just being human. Jordan nodded. Exactly. On Thursday morning, Elena received a call. It was Luca. Hey Mom, he said, his voice buzzing with excitement. I land Friday morning. Everything ready? She asked, smiling. Yeah. You didn't tell me which car it was. Elena chuckled. That's the point. It's a surprise. Luca hesitated. You didn't do anything too crazy, right? You'll see, she teased. After hanging up, she turned to Jordan. Tomorrow morning, I'll need the Taikung center stage. Ribbon. Lighting. Everything. Jordan grinned. Already on it. But then he asked, more seriously, why bring him here, Ms. Brooks? After everything? Her expression softened. Because this place wasn't just where I was disrespected. It's where I built something better. If I take my business elsewhere, the story ends with a firing. Not a transformation. Jordan nodded slowly. That's powerful. Elena met his gaze. You don't fix a system by walking away from it. You fix it by cracking it open, then showing people how to rebuild. And rebuild, they had. On Friday morning, the sun rose high and hot over Liberty Lux. The lot was prepped. The Porsche Taycan Turbo S gleamed like a crown jewel in the center of the showroom. And for the first time, the space was filled not just with products, but with pride. At 10 o'clock sharp, a familiar black SUV pulled into the lot. Out stepped Elena, graceful as ever. And from the passenger side, Luca Brooks, 25, Stanford sweatshirt, eyes wide with wonder. He didn't know what was waiting for him. But he was about to. As the glass doors of Liberty Lux Motors parted open, Elena walked in with quiet poise. Beside her, Luca froze mid-step. His eyes landed instantly on the center of the showroom, where the platinum-gray Porsche Taycan Turbo S stood like a monument. The crimson ribbon looped around the hood shimmered in the morning light, catching every eye. "Mom," Luca breathed. "You didn't." "I did," Elena said simply, her voice proud but even. "For Stanford. For everything you've overcome. For everything you're about to build." A few customers nearby turned to watch. One of them, an older white man who had once laughed quietly during Chad's tirade, now stood rooted in place, speechless. Jordan stepped forward from behind the welcome desk, now not with a clipboard but a sharp blazer and confident stride. "Good morning, Miss Brooks. And you must be Luca." Luca shook his hand, still absorbing the view. "She told me a little about what happened here," he said, glancing at the staff now lined respectfully along the sides. "But I didn't expect all this." "It wasn't just about a car," Jordan said. "It was about who we are when we think no one's watching." Luca turned to his mother. "And now they do watch. They listen, too," she added. She led him to the vehicle as staff watched, not with jealousy, but reverence. The Taycan glowed under the soft lights, its beauty unmarred, its presence now transformed into a symbol of dignity reclaimed. He ran a hand gently along the hood. "You remembered," he said softly. "You told me years ago it was the kind of machine that respects ambition," she smiled. "You were right. And I want you to have it, not because of what it costs, but because of what it means." "Legacy," he guessed. "Vision," she said. "The kind that doesn't just see the world for what it is, but dares to make it better." He turned and pulled her into a hug. Around them, no one interrupted. It wasn't a showroom in that moment. It was a sanctified space. After the moment passed, Luca was given the keys and ushered through a quick review of paperwork and service options by an associate who offered him water, respect, and genuine attention. No assumptions. No rehearsed scripts. Just service. Elena stepped aside while her son sat in the driver's seat for the first time. She watched him smile, watched the engine hum to life with its futuristic purr, and for a moment, she allowed herself to exhale. Jordan walked up beside her, watching too. "You did it," he said. "No," she replied. "We did." He paused. "Can I ask you something personal?" Elena nodded. "What made you fight so hard to fix this place, of all places?" She looked at him, then back at Luca. "Because for black excellence to thrive, the world has to see it in places they don't expect. Not just on stages, not just in headlines, but right here, in luxury dealerships, in boardrooms, in everyday power." Jordan nodded, his chest tight with quiet admiration. "You've made more than a statement. You've made a blueprint." She smiled. "Then follow it. Make it your own. And teach someone else to do the same." Nearby, the older black couple from earlier in the week returned. This time, they were greeted by a team member who offered them a menu of options and a smile without judgment. The woman, noticing Elena, raised her hand in silent thanks. Elena nodded. Liberty Lux was changing. Not just on paper. In practice. In posture. In pulse. And Luca, now standing beside the Taycan with his new keys in hand, looked at the employees, then at his mother. "You didn't just buy me a car," he said. "You gave me a front row seat to what it means to lead with purpose." Elena didn't answer with words. She simply pulled him close again. But across the floor, her message echoed clearly, in every eye that met hers with respect, in every associate now conscious of their voice and presence. The dealership hadn't just gotten a new car. It had gotten a soul. Luca slid into the driver's seat of the Taycan like he belonged there. Because now, he did. The leather hugged him, the control panel pulsed to life beneath his fingers, and as the electric engine whispered its readiness, the future felt tangible. Outside the dealership, he pulled out slowly. Elena watched from behind the glass, arms crossed, expression unreadable, but her eyes held a sparkle she rarely let show in public. Jordan stood beside her. "He's smooth," Jordan said, watching Luca merge into the street. "He was raised to move with intention," Elena replied. "And now," she added softly, "he knows what it looks like to be doubted. But more importantly, he knows how to respond." Back on the road, Luca guided the car along the long stretch outside the Scottsdale business district. The Taycan moved like liquid steel, hugging turns, responding instantly to his hands. But his mind wasn't just on performance, it was replaying the story his mother had told him on the flight in. How she'd been dismissed, belittled, laughed at. And how she had quietly, surgically, dismantled that narrative with precision, poise, and power. Luca returned an hour later, the car parked gently in the designated VIP bay now renamed Founder's Circle. Elena met him near the entrance. "I get it now," he said, stepping out. "Why you didn't scream. Why you didn't post it online." Elena nodded, her tone low. "You don't always need volume to create impact. Sometimes all you need is truth, and the right timing." The staff, many of whom had returned from their lunch break, now operated with a subtle reverence, not out of fear, but from awakening. The showroom buzzed, but it wasn't with gossip. It was with change. Jordan approached with a few updates from the training program. "We've had 3 referrals come in this morning alone," he said. "People heard about what happened. They said this place feels different." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Different is a start. But I'm aiming for sustainable." She took a meeting in the executive lounge that afternoon, where regional heads from 2 neighboring dealerships sat with legal and HR to begin rolling out the same transformation across the brand. No more showroom theater, Elena told them. No more smiling while assuming. The customer should never have to prove they belong. That era ends with us. The conversation was bold, full of friction, but fruitful. Meanwhile, Jordan gave Luca a tour of the operations wing. In the staff break room, he showed him the new code of culture document, pinned proudly beside the HR policy board. Luca read it in silence. "Everyone deserves dignity. Everyone earns it." He smiled. "You helped write this?" Jordan chuckled. "Elena drafted the bones. The rest? We built it together." Outside the window, Elena stood talking with Patrice and Zeke, who were working on a new outreach program targeting underrepresented communities in automotive sales. "What's wild," Luca said, turning to Jordan, "is that none of this was in the plan. She didn't come here intending to clean house. She came here to buy a car," Jordan said. "But the house was already dirty. She just couldn't unsee it." By 5 p.m., the dealership had returned to its elegant rhythm, but the energy was unmistakably different. The sound of jazz still floated softly from the ceiling speakers, but now it felt like background music to progress, not pretense. Elena walked the floor one last time before heading out, offering nods, smiles, and words of gratitude, not from a place of superiority, but of partnership. "You okay?" she asked Jordan as they stood by the front desk. "I am now," he said honestly. "I think. I used to think leadership was about being unshakable. But watching you, I learned it's about knowing when to shake everything." She smiled. "Then I've done my job." Before leaving, she looked around the showroom once more. There were still luxury vehicles. Still polished floors. Still espresso machines humming in the background. But the soul of the place had changed. She glanced toward the main wall, where a new display had been mounted just that morning, a framed photo of Elena standing beside the Taycan with Luca, underneath a quote. "It's not about the car. It's about the road we're building together." She paused in front of it for a moment. Then, without another word, she stepped outside. A week passed. Then two. The story that began with humiliation in a gleaming dealership had become something else entirely, a case study in transformation. Articles circulated quietly in business journals. CEO's quiet comeback sparks cultural revolution in auto retail, luxury with integrity. Elena Brooks sets new standard. But Elena never gave interviews. She didn't want headlines. She wanted results. Across the Liberty Lux regional network, changes rippled outward. The new training program rolled out in Phoenix, then Denver, then San Diego. Compliance officers conducted unannounced visits. Staff meetings began with check-ins, not checklists. "Everyone deserves dignity. Everyone earns it," was no longer a tagline. It was a measurement. And customers noticed. A formerly skeptical black couple from Tempe wrote a handwritten note to Elena's office. "We've bought cars for 40 years. Never once felt like we mattered. Until now." But Elena never stopped refining. Every week she had a one-on-one call with Jordan. Each time, the man who once froze in silence spoke more like a leader in full stride. "The way the staff look at each other now," he said on their final call of the month. "It's like they finally see each other. Not just who's next in line for a sale, but who's standing right beside them." Elena smiled from her office in New York. "Then you've built something that will outlast us both." Back in Scottsdale, Liberty Lux Motors looked similar to how it always had, sleek, modern, pristine. But to walk into it now was to feel something deeper. A warmth. A purpose. A subtle pause before anyone judged you. A willingness to ask before assuming. Jordan had instituted a quarterly mentorship night. Staff members could bring in teens from underserved neighborhoods to learn about the business. On Thursdays, the showroom offered Spanish-speaking service consultants and Mandarin brochures, small changes, quietly radical. Even the music had changed. Every Friday, Elena's old favorite, a Miles Davis piano-led track, opened the day. No one was required to know its name. But somehow, everyone did. Then came the final return. It was a clear Saturday morning when the black Taycan rolled into the lot again. Luca stepped out in a crisp, navy suit. He didn't look like a kid anymore. He looked like a man with a vision, and the legacy of a woman who refused to stay silent. He walked into the showroom where Jordan was prepping a weekend sale campaign. "I heard you've been making waves," Luca said, shaking his hand. Jordan grinned. "Trying to keep up with your mom." Luca walked to the wall display. The photo of him and Elena remained framed. But now beside it was something new, a glass case with the original purchase contract of the Taycan, signed only by Elena Brooks. The title plaque read, "From Refusal to Revolution." A small gathering of staff quietly joined him. Jordan gave a short speech about where they'd been, and where they were going. Then he handed the mic to Luca. "My mom didn't buy me a car," Luca said to the team. "She gave me a compass. And what she taught you, what she showed you, is what I want to build in my own career, a legacy that doesn't settle for symbols of success, but reshapes the system itself." He paused. "So if any of you ever doubt what you're doing here, remember this, you're not selling cars. You're selling belief, one interaction at a time." There wasn't applause. There was something better. Stillness. Respect. A nod of acknowledgement from every corner of the room. Later that afternoon, as the sun dipped low across the Arizona horizon, Elena herself stepped quietly through the side entrance. She hadn't announced her visit. She didn't need to. The receptionist stood up, not because of who she was, but because of what she represented. Jordan came out from his office, smiling. Back for another Porsche? Elena smirked. Back to check on my showroom. You still call it yours? He teased. She raised an eyebrow. Ownership is more than paperwork. It's about responsibility. They stood in silence for a moment, taking it all in, the laughter of employees, the ease of customers, the effortless interactions that now flowed with care, not suspicion. You did good, Jordan, she said. You gave me the space to, he replied. And you gave me hope that space would matter, she answered. As she turned to go, Luca met her at the door. They shared a look only mother and son could. You ready? She asked. He nodded. They stepped outside into the soft orange dusk. The engine of the Taycan purred gently as Luca got in. Elena paused for one last look at the building. Not the cars. Not the brand. The people inside it. Changed. And then, almost as if echoing her thoughts, Jordan's voice came through the doors behind her, firm, kind, directed at a new customer just walking in. Welcome to Liberty Lux Motors. How can we help you today? Elena smiled. Then walked away. Sometimes, justice doesn't arrive with sirens or fury, it walks in, gets ignored, and still transforms the room. Elena Brooks didn't just fire a manager. She rewrote an entire company's culture, starting from the moment she was told she didn't belong. Because as she proved, you don't need to announce your power when your presence demands respect. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. Would you have stayed silent, or spoken up? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story where truth rises louder than prejudice. You're watching True Echo, where the stories may start small, but they always end powerful.